these settings, which would have been easier to do earlier, you can see that there's a marking on this connector for shutdown and mute, and these two connectors correspond to them. The shutdown is a negative logic, which is implied by that slash there. So what you do to make it, these two connectors or jumpers here set the default state of it. So if you want it to be not shut down, you would want that connection to be high, because low makes it shut down on an inverted logic. So what you do is actually create just a blob of solder between the center pad and the high side. Mute is regular logic, so if you want it to be not muted by default, you would do between the low and the center. For most people, that's the state they'll want. The top one soldered to the high, the bottom one soldered to the low, which will make it just power on normally when it gets power. This is more useful for people who are doing embedded type things where they might want to turn it on and off or mute it from a microcontroller or something like that. The same type of pads are used over here for the gain. Unfortunately, I should have done them before I put on all these connectors. It would make it easier. Typically what you'll want is the centers both connected to the low side. That adjusts the amount of amplification you get. It doesn't change your maximum power, just changes how sensitive the volume setting is, like how sensitive the inputs are. So for a normal MP3 player, iPod, cell phone, whatever you're using as a source, in most cases, the lowest gain with basically both sides soldered to the low pad will be about right. If you find that you have your volume set to maximum and it's still quiet, not loud enough, but is not distorting, it's just not loud enough, then you can change those gain settings, and there'll be some stuff about that in the manual as far as what settings give you how much gain. But in most cases, just low will work well. If you were to do something silly like go high, you'll probably it'll be extremely loud and distorted even with your volume set quite low on your player, and it'll be much more sensitive to noise. So in most cases you'll get the best performance with it on low on both. And since I'm embedding this, I'm not going to solder the extra connectors here for the inputs and for the mute and shutdown switches, which are optional. Most people won't use these unless they're hooking it to a microcontroller. Typically you probably will want a set of pin type connectors on here that you can plug your inputs into, though the other option is just to solder those input wires directly to it from a headphone plug or whatever. Again, in most cases you would have the output capacitors, and you would have your connectors here and here for your speaker outputs. This is being used for a subwoofer, so it's running bridged, so that's why I'm only using the bridged tied load here in the middle. And that's pretty much it. It's being used along with a bunch of other stuff, so I'm also skipping all the fuse and all of these types of things because they're all going to be handled elsewhere in the circuit. And that's pretty much done. It should hook it up to a battery and it should work. One thing, I will be marking these on any boards that I send out, but on my Silkscreen I have the positive actually on the wrong terminal. So I actually managed to test my reverse polarity protection first thing because I didn't notice that I did that, but this terminal is negative. I should be clearly marking them with a you know, I'll probably just mark them with a Sharpie or something to make it obvious for this run, and then it will be corrected in my next run of boards. But it's a pretty minor error, important but minor, so I'll just be marking those. Other than that, this should be good to go.